Hi again. This is part 2 in the Zugzwang exercise. We can now look closely at what happens if white moves first. The preponderance of material for the first player matters not, for it's the placement of the black king and rook that counts. And so black forgoes moving and it's white to move and not win. White cannot win this position. When I initially looked at this position online, I thought to myself, it must be an easy enough win. But then it quickly occurred to me, this is a Zugzwang, and so I investigated further and I found this article, and that's why I'm presenting it to you now, because I think it's very interesting and very useful for every chess player of every standard to understand exactly what goes on in a Zugzwang, and this I think explains it as well as it can be explained. Although the king and rook should remain close and protect one another, as identified in part 1, they do separate here, but nonetheless, they still afford a connection. You can have a connection in pieces without being right next to each other, as this will prove. So there are, in fact, let me just see here, 4 variations that we need to consider. The first one is king c5. And black plays rook b1. This is what I mean by separating. But black is controlling the b line, and he's instantly threatening to start checking and possibly even winning white's queen. And then it will be a one game for black. So white has to be very careful here. So white delivers check on a5. He could go to c7, but then the king would go to a6. And white cannot deliver mate while black is controlling the b line. This is the difficulty. So then black goes king b8 with king and rook on the same file. So then all that white really has, you notice how the black king and the black rook are on different colors. This is an important feature here in black avoiding what took place so often in part 1, namely white picking up the rook with check. So all that white has here really is to go back to d8 and give check. And then black repeats, sticking whenever possible on a square of opposite color to the rook so that he avoids moving into any possible winning of the rook or losing of the rook in the case of black, and that is evidently a draw. There's no way that white can make any progress. So king c5 doesn't work. So the second choice is queen a5 check, which looks pretty threatening because it's forcing black to move to b8, which of course he has to do. So white homes in on the rook, trying to win it. Queen a6. Now rook c7 check here also works well, because after king to b6 and then rook f7. So this time he's controlling the 7th rank and the rook and the king are on different colors, and it's impossible to make any progress. So that would be good enough in itself. But we'll just have a look at the other main variation as I'd see it. So we did say queen a5 check. King b8. Queen a6. Instead of rook c7 check, we can go rook b1, and as in the previous variation, on the b line. And really here white has run out of checking moves. And again, the king and the rook are on squares of opposite color, which is ideal in this. So there's just no way that white can make his material advantage count. So that's 2 down. We have 2 variations to go. Let's look at those. Queen d4 check. This was a regular move in part 1. Let's see what white can do with it here. Well, black plays... He wouldn't want to go here because of this nasty little surprise, Queen a4 checkmate. So what he does, and he doesn't want to go here either, really, because I think there may well be possibilities, yes, like this to there, and if he puts the rook in the way, queen goes to here and that's checkmate. If he moves the king, he has to come back. In fact, it doesn't really make that much difference, I don't think. Let's just put that back for a moment. We said queen d4 check. I think king b8 is best for black. We'll look at king b8. Yes, I'm just looking in my notes here. King a8 is okay because of what I just said. It can sort of repeat the position, so there's no problem there with king a8. But king b8 is okay. And what you have here is similar to in variation 2. White cannot make any progress. He just has to keep repeating moves. He can go down here, but it just puts it back to where it was. And then you run into variation 2 again with queen a5 and you come back. So long as black is controlling this b line or the 7th rank, he doesn't really run into any problems. So let's just have a look at the final variation. And that's queen c8, which is quite interesting. Of course, what black has to avoid here is playing here because instantly he would lose the rook. So he can't really move his king anywhere there. He just has to move the rook. So what does he do? Again, he plays rook b1. And note the rook and the king are on different coloured squares. Rook b6 check may be okay as well. I've mentioned here as I was going through this in my notes. Followed by once the king moves rook b1, but I think rook b1 at once is probably as good as you can get because white cannot make any progress there. It's not possible. If he plays here, for instance, then black can quite simply come here. Black can come here. What does white do then? Now, the king and the rook are on the same coloured squares here, but white can't capitalise on it. What can he do? He can't check here. He can't go on the b line. He can't check there. So really all that he'd have available would be here. And he has to keep checking because black is threatening to win the queen. So then, of course, black goes back. He cannot make any progress. It's an unbelievable situation, really, with the preponderance of material. A queen against a rook, but he cannot win this game. I do hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that anyone who is familiar with Zugzwang has finally honed their skills on it as a result of looking at this. And anyone who's not familiar with the principles underlying it, I do hope that you now understand it well enough so that if you ever encounter this in practice, you'll know what you're viewing. And thanks very much indeed again for watching, and bye-bye for now.